Hello guys, my name is Naman Patel and today we are going to discuss about the blood supply to the CNS. So, in the blood supply of the CNS, there are three parts. The posterior circulation, second, the anterior circulation, and the third is the circle of Willis. It is nothing but actually the junction of the anterior and posterior circulation. Right. So, in this video, we will discuss about the posterior circulation. Right. The posterior cerebrum of the CNS. Sorry. So, coming to the, let me just draw one diagram. I actually drawed it very lightly, but I will now draw it very quickly. This is the midbrain, right? And here comes the pons, right guys? And this is the medulla, right? And this is the brainstem and the spinal cord. Okay, let me just draw it now. And here is the pontomedullary junction, right? This is the pontomedullary junction, and of course don't forget to make the cerebellum, right? So this is a structural view. So actually in the posterior circulation, of the CNS, right? In the posterior circulation, it is all starts with the two vertebral arteries which are coming from the subclavian artery, right? And there are two vertebral arteries. Let me just draw it with. These are the right one and this is the left one, right guys? Okay, now they are going to enter here, right? These two vertebral arteries actually adjoins with each other and they make one basilar artery. It is a very major artery because it is going to originate very many arteries, and we will discuss about it later, right? This is the left vertebral artery and this is the right vertebral artery, right? Okay, so as we can see, these two vertebral arteries are actually supplying the blood to the medulla, right? And from these vertebral arteries, one artery is going to be originated right from here, okay, like this. And this artery is known as the posterior inferior cerebellar artery. This is also known as pica in short. Okay, this is pica. So this pica, this posterior inferior cerebellar artery is going to supply the posterior inferior aspect of the cerebellum and also the anterior aspect of the medulla, right? It is also going to supply blood to the anterior part of the medulla. Okay, coming next. From these two vertebral arteries, there is one more artery getting arised, and it is anterior spinal artery. It is actually only one artery, and it is going to run in the anterior spinal fissure. We will talk about it later. Okay, so coming next, this is anterior spinal artery, right? Okay, now coming next, from just right to this pontomedullary junction, these two vertebral arteries adjoins and makes one basilar artery, right? Basilar artery. And from this basilar artery, it is going to arise one artery which is going to supply the anterior inferior aspect, which is going to arise the anterior inferior aspect of medulla. Oh, sorry, the anterior inferior aspect of cerebellum, and it is also going to provide blood supply to the pons, right? You can see it here, just right here. Now coming next, this basilar artery here, it is, as I said earlier, it is going to originate very many arteries. From this basilar artery there are very many small arteries originating, like the labyrinthine artery. Actually, this labyrinthine artery is going to the inner and the middle ear. Okay, so let me just draw it one more now. And just above the labyrinthine artery we can see small branches, very small branches of what? Pontine arteries. Here we see pontine arteries. Now coming next, just above the origination of oculomotor nerve, that is just right here. If you see my first video, you can see it there. I described the origination of the cranial nerves. It is the third cranial nerve, that is the oculomotor, and just above it, this basilar artery is going to be bifurcated, that is dividing into two parts, and this basilar artery is going to be bifurcated now, right? Just right here, and it will make what? It will make what? It will make posterior cerebral artery. That is, it is going to supply the posterior aspect of the cerebrum, not the cerebellum. Now this posterior cerebral artery is going to supply the posterior aspect of the cerebrum, right? Posterior aspect. And I just forgot that one more division of this basilar artery is the superior cerebellar artery, right? And it is going to supply the superior aspect of the cerebellum and also the pons, right? And cerebellum. And this artery is superior cerebellar artery, right? Let me just jot it down, right? So, and now I want to discuss about the few things about the spinal cord. Now, as you can see here, this anterior spinal artery is going to supply the two-third blood supply. It is going to supply the two-third blood of the whole spinal cord. It is going to supply it to the spinal cord. So the anterior spinal artery is going to supply the two-third blood. And what about the one-third blood? Which artery is going to supply it? The answer is the posterior. Wait. So we were talking about the anterior spinal artery. So it is going to supply the two-third blood to the spinal cord, and the one-third will be supplied by the posterior spinal artery. Now we actually wants to draw a diagram, and that will help you. So this is, let me just complete it, right? It is just a rough diagram so you can understand it well, right? Let me just draw it. This is the anterior spinal fissure, and just right here we see, okay, so I want to tell you about the anterior spinal artery and the posterior spinal artery. A fact about the anterior and the posterior spinal artery is that, see, these are actually very long arteries, so they need continuous blood supply and a very major blood supply because it is a part of CNS. So to the anterior spinal arteries, there are very many segmental arteries which are actually supplying blood to the anterior and the posterior spinal artery. I will just show it in few minutes to you. See, now these two diagrams, this is the anterior spinal artery and this. Now here lies the anterior spinal artery, right? And this is actually what it is doing, is that it is supplying the blood to the two-third part of the spinal cord, right? This is, if you can imagine, this is the two-third part of the spinal cord, and about this one-third part there are two posterior spinal arteries which are actually arising also from the vertebral arteries or sometimes from the posterior inferior cerebellar arteries, that is spica, and they are actually supplying the blood to the one-third part. Now about the segmental arteries, we need to discuss something about it. These are the segmental arteries. Segmental arteries. So they enter right here and they bifurcates, right? These segmental arteries bifurcates, and this will go like this and this will go like this. Now the posterior one will be named as posterior radicular artery, and the anterior one will be known as anterior radicular artery. right? And that is all about the spinal cord circulation, and the posterior circulation is completed right now, and in our next video we will discuss about the anterior circulation of the CNS. And that's all for now, and hope you will like my video, guys. So bye.